Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the kickoff session of CMEpalooza Fall 2020. This session is called The Case of the Rejected Grant Request, a CMEpalooza Whodunit. And this is one of our gold sponsor sessions. This session is sponsored by Physicians Education Resource. I am Scott Cover, one of the co-producers of CMEpalooza. And I would like to first obviously welcome everyone to today's event. We have a full 8 hours of education for those who are viewing this live, and certainly everything is going to be available in our archive as well. So before we get started, as we do before all of our sessions, I would like to thank the sponsors of CMEpalooza Fall. Our gold sponsors, Daiichi Sankyo, Physicians Education Resource, Academic CME. Our silver sponsors, Peer Audience, Medscape Education, Clinical Care Options and Practicing Clinicians Exchange, Haymarket Medical Education, Helio CME, Projects in Knowledge, and Platform Q Health Education. And finally, our bronze sponsors, PVI, Catalyst Medical Education, CMEology, the Academy for Continued Healthcare Learning, Vindigo Medical Education, Paradigm, Postgraduate Institute for Medicine, Global Education Group, CE Outcomes, Integrity Continuing Education, Answers in CME, RMEI, Access Medical Education, MedIQ, Integritas Communication, Infograph Ed, Free CME, Med Learning Group, Primary Care Network, Prova Education, Red Med Ed, Peer Voice, and CME Outfitters. So during all of our CMEpalooza sessions, for those who are viewing this live, there are 2 ways to ask questions today. You can use the free CME text line to send in a question. The number is 267-6660-CME, that's 0263. Or you can tweet your question to us using the CMEpalooza hashtag. I'll be kind of checking in for questions as we're going along during this and all of our other sessions. This is going to be scrolling on the screen, so if you missed it now, you can kind of catch up with it in just a moment. So we will also be incorporating audience response technology during this presentation via Poll Everywhere. You can either download the Poll Everywhere app on your phone or device and join the presentation entitled CMEpalooza 000, or you can type in the following URL in a web browser, www.polleverywhere.com, hashtag CMEpalooza 000. So one last thing, just be mindful that the opinions, discussions, and or conclusions expressed during this session are those of our panelists and do not represent an endorsement by or position of their employer, parent company, or its affiliates. And with that, I am going to bring up our panel for this session and turn it over to our moderator, Phil Talamo, to get us started. Go ahead, Phil.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott. Good to see everybody. I'm excited to kick off this first session here, which is a CME version of Whodunit, based on the classic game and movie Clue, where we're going to talk about a fictitious grant request and really look at who was at fault. We'll call you a few times during the program, see who you think did it, and at the end, we're going to find out who actually did it. So I want to reiterate Scott's disclaimer that this is in great educational spirit. It's fun. Does not reflect anything that any of our organizations do, and we're gonna learn from it. So it'll be a good time. So I'm Phil Talamo. I'm the president of PER. I want to start with a little fun fact from everybody. For those of you keeping up with me during the pandemic, I'm coaching my kids' T-ball team, which is a bunch of 4-year-olds. I'm teaching them the art of competition very early and turning these boys into men, which is a lot of fun. And actually this morning I was invited to join the league board, so I must be doing something right. Even though every game ends in a tie, but it is what it is. So next up, I'd like to introduce Mary Faulkner, who's playing the role of a supporter, former associate director at a commercial supporter, currently working at Acuvia and also consulting. So Mary, tell us a fun fact about yourself.
Okay, like all of us, we've probably done a lot of walking during the pandemic, and I have tracked mine, and I've walked over 1 million steps since March 12th.
That's awesome. So playing the role of the educational strategist or business development is Audrey Torno. Audrey, tell us a fun fact about yourself.
Fun fact, 2020 has actually been a year of a lot of positives. And so earlier this year, I completed a series of classes in glass blowing.
Very nice. So playing the role of our outcomes expert, who is an outcomes expert, of course. I should say that everybody playing the role of this fictitious CME company that we're working on is an expert in that disease state. Is Emily Bixler, MBA, the Associate Director of Outcomes Assessment and Analytics at Peerview Institute for Medical Education. Emily, why don't you tell us about that?
Well, I love cooking. So COVID has actually given me the opportunity to try out a lot of new and fun, adventurous recipes. I think I've tried about 50 new recipes during this time. So
that's awesome. And playing the role of the medical affairs lead is Kevin Obal, PhD, General Manager of Oncology at Clinical Care Options. Tell us a fun fact, Kevin.
Well, Phil, I've given myself the title of Texas Barbecue Pitmaster, and that is officially recognized as widely as my office, right?
In Texas, that's a tough thing to do. I know that.
That's right, yeah.
And then playing the role of the marketing lead is Adam Glazer, the Vice President of Marketing and Communications at MedIQ. Adam, why don't you give us a fun fact?
So as you can see from the picture behind me, I'm a big fan of the 8 Rocky movies, which does include the 2 Creed movies and even Rocky V, which for those that know, that wasn't one of the best ones. But I'm very proud of the fact that my now 10-year-old daughter has been reciting the line, "It's not about how hard you hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward." She's been doing that line since about the age of 4, so I'm very proud of that fact.
It's fantastic. It is one of the best quotes in all the movies, so I'll give you a virtual that one. All right, so let's jump into it. So I'm going to set the stage a little bit and give you an overview of the situation and the scenario. So we're going to role play an RFP that was issued by a company called Prestige Library of Ultimate Medicines, or PLUM, for an educational program in lung cancers, focusing on delivering high quality care during the COVID crisis. It was due during 2 weeks' time, so pretty quick turnaround, and stressed being innovative and different to stand out in a virtual environment where, of course, in-person meetings have been canceled. So our fictional med ed company, it is called the Company of Multidisciplinary Understanding of Standard Tactics and Rational Delivery, abbreviated as Colonel Mustard, created a program that will be a series of video webcasts on COVID and lung cancer with regional variances and customized content, partnered with the American Lung Cancer Society of America, very prestigious organization, planned for level 5 outcomes, and promised a significant number of learners. So you don't need to take notes. That's some background, but I certainly want to say that this is clearly a very, very good proposal that we submitted, and something that we anticipated winning, because it was just an excellent thing. And what we know how to do is we know how to win here at the Colonel Mustard CME company. So let's get started.
Hey, Phil, good morning.
Hey, Mary, how are you? Great to hear from you.
Oh, good. I wanted to get back to you on the RFP for the lung cancer program in COVID. So I wanted to let you know the team, we've gotten all everything in and we've reviewed, and you know how I wanted to give you the call instead of just, hitting the decline button, but your grant wasn't accepted.
That's crazy. We put together such a great program. Do you think I could have a little bit of feedback on this?
You know what? Yeah, but right now, I'm sorry. I just wanted to get the call out to you before I ran for the day, because I've got a really, really full day, but I've got to go. So why don't you reach out and we can set up some time. In the meantime, why don't you get some specific questions we can go through, and I'll give you the best perspective I get, but I got to go.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for the consideration. I'll talk to you soon.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
You too. Unbelievable. I really thought we were going to win that one. So let's poll the audience out here. What do we think? Who do you typically blame when a grant request gets declined? Scott, help us out here.
All right. So this is going to be sort of our preliminary voting, since we don't really know a lot about the grant and why it was declined. We're going to vote on who initially looks suspicious or who we think is responsible. So let me call up the poll everywhere screen. Okay. So who is primarily responsible for this grant being declined? Who done it? Was it the medical director, Kevin, the BD schmoozer, Audrey, the outcomes guru, Emily, or the marketing maven, Adam? Based on what you know of these folks, who is responsible for this grant being declined? And as you can see, polleverywhere.com, pollev.com/CMEpalooza000 or CMEpalooza000 to vote. So we'll do this a couple more times throughout this session this morning. All right, so it looks like the majority of people have voted for the BD schmoozer, Audrey, as being primarily responsible for this grant being declined. So I am going to leave this up for a little bit. And Phil, you are going to continue with our case.
All right. Well, I think that, of course, the first thing we got to do then is call the BD schmoozer. Somebody get Audrey on the phone. We got to figure out what's going on. Audrey, I just got a pretty crazy. What are you out on the golf course?
Hey, I'm on my way out to the golf course. You know, Brian McGowan's been talking a lot of smack, and I need to get in a few extra rounds this week before the Weapons of Grass Destruction tournament. By the way, is your foursome, the wedgies, ready for some friendly fire?
You know, I'm always up for some golf, down for some golf, whatever you want to call it. But I just got a pretty crazy phone call from Mary. Remember the COVID lung cancer grant we put together that we thought was a slam dunk out there?
Totally.
Apparently it got declined, and I don't understand why. So I need you to help me understand what went into this.
I mean, I'm really disappointed. Well, I'm disappointed in the decline because I was 100% certain we had a solid 50-50 shot at this. Do you think there's any chance of a mulligan?
I can ask her, but we got to figure out what we might have done wrong here. How did you come up with this format for this digital program?
Well, I talked to Mary, and I knew they weren't supporting any live meetings till at least April 2021. So we went virtual and discussed with the team that we needed to keep it short. I mean, 30, 45 minutes plus Q&A. Everyone's concerned about virtual fatigue. So we were going to record all the activities when they were done and post them as endurings. And then we really wanted to stand out. So we were thrilled to have a partnership with the American Lung Cancer Society. They have patient educators across the country, and we plan to kick off each event by live streaming in a regional patient to share their journey, you know, really drive home the value of the education and convey to clinicians the impact they have on lives. And then, hey, who's your caddy? I did an environmental scan. There were no other major events on the proposed dates. From a format perspective, it seemed like a hole-in-one.
It sounds like it was a hole-in-one. It's a really good program with a great partnership. How did you think of the budget? What did you put together to do that? Did it make sense?
Totally. The RFP didn't have a budget cap listed. So I told the team to build the budget based on what they really needed to get the job done. Now, the association partner fees were all locked in after we defined the roles and responsibilities to make sure expectations were clear to everybody involved. We wanted to provide a fair market value for everyone's time and resources, but we didn't want multiple groups charging for the same tasks. And the overall costs were well in line with other grants that had similar tactical approaches that we've had funded in the past. We even reviewed reconciled budgets from some of those past initiatives. Phil, the numbers were spot on.
It sounds like we did everything we needed to do on the back end. Like, surely we were talking to the supporter, right? Did we get any clarifications? Did we understand what the real needs were?
Of course. I called Mary a few times before we submitted. I wanted to make sure she didn't get hit with like a last minute budget cut. But you know, it's hard to keep her on the phone, Phil. More than a minute and she's jumping off. She's got another call coming in or a surprise meeting where she's got to present a year's worth of outcomes on one tiny slide. She didn't mention any recently awarded grants that were similar in concept. Like I mentioned earlier, the live meetings just weren't high on the list for right now. Have you noticed when you text her, her replies are like one word, like good, great, okay.
I've never had that problem with that. I always thought she was always very open and transparent and honest. I can't believe it. It really sounds like we didn't get enough clarifications.
It's hard to get in touch with her.
I guess we'll have to see. Talking to her later, I hope we can figure out a little bit more on some background here. Did you work with the rest of the team?
Absolutely. We sat down a couple of times and talked it through. Kevin told me he was going to interview our lung cancer expert to make sure the needs assessment was really on par. Adam said we achieved good numbers with other web activities in this specific target audience, and he was confident he could build a plan for a solid approach shot. And I told Emily we needed a strong back 9 on this one. No need to strive for level 6 or 7 outcomes, but even a web activity should get to level 5 if it was planned well. Now, I didn't review the final version of the grant before it was submitted. That was the week I had that little golf cart collision with the clubhouse. But I did text the team, and I asked if they had any challenges with their area of the grant, and everyone told me we were good.
It sounds a lot like I heard about that small collision, by the way. I'm glad you're okay. You look like you're back out there, which is good.
Totally good. Yes.
So it sounds like we did everything that we could have, but maybe there was something we could have done more. Thanks for chatting with me. I hope you have a good round. Believe me, I'm pretty mad that we lost this grant. Let's see if we can get to the bottom of this when we get back in touch with her.
So am I. We can talk later. But sounds good, and I'll see you for some wings and swings.
See you soon. All right, Scott, what do we think in this investigation? What does everybody think? Does this change our thoughts on whodunit?
All right, let's we'll have a clean version of whodunit. Okay, now that you've heard a little bit more about this case, who do you think now is primarily responsible for this grant being declined? Who done it? For those of you who are still trying to get on to Poll Everywhere, here's the information: pollev.com/CMEpalooza000. Or if you have the app on your device, it's just CMEpalooza000. So now the responses are showing a pretty even split. The medical director, Kevin, has now taken the lead as the person primarily responsible for this grant being declined. All right, so Phil, I'm going to send it back to you.
All right, let's get Mary on the phone. Let's see if we can get some clarifications on here. Mary, you there?
Yeah. Hey, Phil, what's up?
I'm glad I caught you. I was talking internally. I mean, this had to have been the educational design, right? Like, was the design not right there? Was it not aligned with what you were expecting?
Hang on. You know what? When I look at the whole grant, we got a lot of responses to the RFP. And I'm going to have to touch base with the team to get a little bit more clarification. But, hey, I'm just getting ready to step into another meeting. So let's touch base maybe later on today, and I can get a little bit more specific feedback on the grant.
Okay, that sounds good. Thanks. Wow. So maybe Audrey was right. Maybe everything was in there. Maybe it could sound like she was hinting at the outcomes. Could have been maybe the outcomes. Let's get Emily on the phone. Ring, ring. Emily, you there?
Hey.
Hey, Emily. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm a little disappointed. We had this great program that we put together for this lung cancer COVID, right? And it apparently got declined. I thought we were at a winner there.
Yeah, so did I.
So what do you think? Like, how did you guys put this thing together? It sounded like, everything was going to do this nice webcast. How did you put ARS into it?
Well, we were able to start from a really good place because the webcast software we had already been utilizing for our recent programs had the polling capabilities already included. So we didn't have to add that to the budget or anything like that. What we did learn during the busy COVID webcast season is that you can't always count on your learners to show up exactly on time. So if you rely on too many ARS questions right at the start of the activity, you may not capture the largest possible sample size. So while we did plan to ask the majority of our pre-cohort ARS questions during the pretest, we also utilized questions throughout the activity to keep the learner engaged while also being careful to avoid survey fatigue. Knowing that you can also like lose the learners on the back end of the presentation if they sense it's coming to a close, we also made sure to capture our post polling prior to the Q&A. So I think that all of our recent virtual live education we've done during all of this COVID craziness has really sharpened and honed our webcast outcomes data collection.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, that's a pretty good plan for a webcast. How about, we have all this great experience. Did you pull any relevant outcomes for similar programs to put in the proposal?
Of course. Yeah, I worked with the Med Affairs team to showcase the outcomes data from our 2020 lung cancer programs, and then also from our COVID-19 webcast series. So like most oncology areas, the science of lung cancer is moving so fast that we had a host of recent activities to pull from and analyze. So that's where we developed the needs assessment from. Aside from using that data to clarify and confirm the clinical gaps, we also included the separate section for the proposal describing the experience with developing lung cancer education, including the number of type of learners that typically show up to be educated, plus the various educational designs and engagement platforms we have utilized in the past. Between our rich experience and the partnership with ALCSA, I think we represented ourselves as extremely experienced and knowledgeable about how to measure the impact of activities in lung cancer.
I totally agree. I mean, maybe it was the level 5. How did we say we were going to hit level 5? I know before Mary hung up, she said she really likes level 5, and we've known from that for years.
Yeah, well, knowing that they wanted to have the level 5, we did include it. Observing that these participants in their clinical setting or getting them to complete any kind of chart audit seemed a little bit ambitious. So we settled on utilizing some case vignettes in the pre and post, and then doing a 2-month follow-up survey with completers where we utilize case vignettes and then include some open-ended questions, asking them to describe the specific changes that they want to make to their practice as a result of participating in the education. We just thought that the combination of the qualitative and quantitative assessments would create a really great snapshot of how the activity impacted performance.
It's definitely a comprehensive plan. It's a little complicated. Did you talk to everybody, getting everybody together to execute on that?
Yeah. We got everybody sign off on the plan. Audrey thought it would align really well with the supporter expectations. Adam included a portion of the audience generation effort for the follow-up surveys. And I also spoke with Kevin, who confirmed that his team could also help develop the case vignette assessments. So we were right on budget, and everyone was on the same page with how we were going to execute the survey. So I'm really not sure why this one wouldn't have been approved. I don't know. Maybe it was something on Kevin's end.
Maybe it was. It sounds like things are really, really looking good. So, well, thanks. This is a great call. I'll see if I can get some more feedback.
Thanks. Keep me posted.
I will. Take care. All right, Scott, that's part 2 of the investigation. This is looking pretty good. I don't know. It's tough. Who do you think done it?
All right. Well, let's bring up our next clean poll. So people can vote once again based on what you're hearing so far. Who is primarily responsible for this grant being denied? Medical Director Kevin, BD Schmoozer Audrey, Outcomes Guru Emily, or the Marketing Maven Adam? We got a comment on our free CME text line that says, I blame Mary. Why is it not a choice to say it was part of the 70% of grants that get rejected for no apparent reason?
Ooh. And clearly it wasn't management, right? That's not even an option A.
All right. So now we're getting questions. Lots of people pointing the finger at the medical director, Kevin. And I believe that we are going to be hearing from Kevin right now. So let me take the poll down.
Let's give Mary a call. See what's going on over there. I think we got a pretty good idea. Mary.
Hey, Phil. You again?
It's me again. I think it was the outcomes. It's got to be the outcomes, right? Like maybe we didn't give you the confidence to reach level 5.
Well, you know what? Given today's environment, you know how I feel about level 5 outcomes, right? Super important. But this is something that's going to need a little bit more conversation because, look, I really question level 5 when it comes to online program, but there's more to it than that. It's not just one answer. Oh, I got to run, but yeah, let's talk later. Let's talk, later on. We have more time, but and I can give you hopefully a more comprehensive answer. Sorry about that.
No problem. I'll talk to you soon. All right, let's give Kevin a call here.
Hey, Phil.
Hey, Kevin.
I haven't seen you this upset since Audrey beat you in golf.
No, I know. I thought I was going to win that round. I don't know, maybe. And Audrey, she's been telling me this. Mary's been tough to get in touch with for a long time, and she's always been nice to me, and I've always had no problem. But I couldn't get in touch with her. So anyway, like you're probably wondering what happened. That you remember the COVID and lung cancer, the grant that we put together, the ROCKS program.
Yeah.
Apparently it got declined.
Oh man.
Yeah, so I'm trying to kind of figure out what happened. What did you guys do on the content side? I'm sure you had our best writer on it. Did you freelance it out?
We didn't. But when we do freelance this type of work, we carefully check the content and get back to them. Plus, Phil, we have the best freelance writers in the business on retainer. So, but in this case, the RFP was just too important to source out to a freelance writer. We kept it in-house. And our lung cancer expert within the medical affairs team did the research, contributed to the grant development.
Well, that's good. Yeah, we've got some great writers in-house too. How about the content? How did we know that it was accurate and relevant?
We had several internal reviewers, and I reviewed it carefully myself. The content was top-notch. Our process is to have all the content elements of the proposal reviewed by a recognized expert. In this case, our normal KOL was on clinical service. Did not respond until after we submitted the grant. The deadline on this RFP was really tight, so we had to use a new expert. She was very well recognized, but I think she might have been semi-retired, and I don't even know if she's seeing patients anymore. Come to think of it, she did respond awfully quick. But hey, I was able to get her on the phone, get her opinions in time to meet the RFP deadline. And she thought everything looked good. Learning objectives, needs assessment, potential case questions, agenda, everything looked good to her.
Well, that's good. Well, how about speaking of agenda? Did you think that the agenda made sense with the format and the link that we were trying to do?
Yeah, I do. I mean, we were able to leverage elements of the ASCO lung cancer program, which was a real beauty. You remember that one that was fully supported, one of the best webinars associated with virtual ASCO this year. Everyone said so. So with all of that, our internal external reviews, I would say absolutely yes, it was appropriate.
That was a fantastic program. It really was. But come on, were you just trying to catch lightning twice with the ASCO agenda? Like you had to have tweaked something, right? We can't pitch the same thing as an ASCO live webcast as another webcast in response to an RFP.
Of course not. But even with the format change, we should carefully consider past successes as part of our educational strategy. But it needs to be adapted to the new virtual format, targeted learners. Importantly, data have really changed since ASCO. Remember, we're learning more about the pandemic every day, but our team captured all of those changes in the agenda. If watching Oceans 11, 12, and 13 has taught me anything, you never do the same gig twice. Everyone knows that. And just like Steven Soderbergh with the Ocean series, I really thought we brought all the elements together to win this RFP and have a successful program.
Yeah. Speaking of bringing things together, how much did you work with the rest of the team?
Yeah, I worked with Emily. We got outcomes data for all of our relevant 2020 programs, and we were able to highlight our expertise by including data from our very successful COVID-19 webinar series. I thought we had the aspects that no one else would have. Audrey and I discussed the format. We were on the same page. Phil, I'll build you consistently great content and a great program, but how can we be sure learners will show up?
Good point. That really is a good point. Well, thanks, Kevin. I know, we dropped those 17 other needs assessments on you last night that are due today at 5. So
I'll get working on those. All right.
I'll let you know what happens when I figure out and get to the bottom of this. Oh man, I don't know. This is looking like a good proposal. I don't know what happened here, Scott. Why don't we, when we poll again, we'll see if we can figure out what everybody thinks and who done it.
All right, poll number 3. You've seen this question before. Who is primarily responsible for this grant being declined? Who done it? Medical Director Kevin, BD Schmoozer, Audrey, Outcomes Guru Emily, Marketing Maven Adam. All right, things are shifting a bit. Emily looks clean, but now Adam looks a little bit suspicious. All right, so we're gonna turn this back to Phil, and I believe you have someone on the phone.
Let's see. Ring, ring. get Mary. Mary, you there? Hey, it's me again.
Hey, Phil, how you doing?
I'm good. We're trying to figure it out. I know it's early. I gotta know. Was it
This is really getting to you, huh?
I can't get past it. Was it the content that was just maybe some subpar? Did it not align with what you thought the educational needs would be that you guys identified?
Yeah. Now, like I said, mentioned earlier about outcomes, I think this is a little bit more of a robust conversation. But because from the content, I can't call that out to the top of my head right away. So let's set up some time. I would say the content didn't jump out as a problem, but let's, maybe we can touch base a little later in the day, and I can give you maybe a more comprehensive review of what happened. I got to run.
Sounds good. Thanks. Geez, we're not getting anything from her. This is crazy. Just like, it's got to be the marketing. Let's get the marketing person on the phone. Where's Adam? Hey, Adam, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going, Phil?
It's all right. Things are going. We submitted for that COVID and lung cancer grant. Remember that one we all worked on? We thought it was really, really good. We had a great proposal.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently got declined, and can't figure out why. So I'm doing a little investigation, trying to figure out what we did, what we didn't do. So tell me about the marketing. How did we get to the numbers that we promised? Like, how do we determine what we were going to pitch them?
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I actually have the proposal right here. I almost had this one framed. I thought it was so good. So I'm shocked right now. But yeah, I'm looking at it right now. The RFP specifically called for oncologists. So I estimated around 4,000 learners, maybe 1,000 redeemers. It's a pretty good estimate. Oncologists are really tough to hit right now, but I figured, some non-specialists would sneak in there too. But I based the numbers on similar activities we've had over the past couple of years. Remember that lung cancer one we did I think it was about a year ago? Yeah, that one had almost 5,000 learners. So this was right on. And that one had a really great faculty and a great partner, but so did this one. So that number's been pretty good.
Yeah, interesting. I wonder how we got there. What did we do? Were they all oncologists? Were there some other specialties in there as well?
Yeah, mostly oncologists. There was, including MDs, NPs, PAs, RNs. I figured around 1,000 or so would be PCP. And I also threw in some hematologists to boost that number up a little bit, and it was lung cancer, so a little bit of pulmonologists as well. But with COVID and everything, pulmonologists not real easy to hit.
Yeah. No. How about cost per learner? Did you look at that at all?
Yeah, a little bit. I thought the budget was in line with what we were trying to do here and the audience we were trying to hit. Listen, our database is pretty good in this area, so we can use a lot of internal tactics, which don't cost a lot of money. But I did need some money to do some outside advertising. Anytime you're trying to reach the oncology market, it's going to start adding up. It's an expensive group to reach, and then you mix in the hemoncs and the pulmonologists, and the budget was a little bit on the higher side, but mostly in line with what we expected.
So it sounds like we've got sort of the goal in mind. How creative was the audience generation plan? Was it unique or same old?
No, I felt this one was pretty solid, actually. So what I did was I broke down not only how our proprietary database of learners what we do with that, but what we do with our 4 social media networks. I laid out all of our outside advertising sources. This included ASCO, and of course the American Lung Society of America, because that was the partner we had. What else? The format proposed was a series of webcasts. So I actually laid out the strategy where we could do some teaser videos, so you could see, potential learners could see a little sneak peek through our social media feeds and other channels. They mentioned regional variances and everything. So we actually talked about how in the grant, how we can specifically highlight those regional variances using our database. What else? Innovation. They mentioned innovation. They want us to be an innovative one. I mixed in some marketing buzzwords even. I even threw in, content marketing, influencers, SEO, mobile optimization. We threw it all out there. But I don't normally give away the farm here and keep a couple of secrets. Don't tell everybody exactly what we're going to do. But I thought it was a pretty solid plan.
Yeah, it sounds like that was spot on too. How about like showcasing the proposal? Did it look okay?
Oh yeah. This was our grant proposal template. Our new one is highlighting all of our past successes. similar projects that we've done, awards we've won, presentations we've given, publications we've been featured in. I mean, the new template has everything. It has great graphics, really easy to scan the key points. We had some eye-catching examples, you name it. We even went into all the examples of things we've done in lung cancer just to show really specific. So yeah, I felt great on how this one looked.
Yeah, I thought so too. I think we all did. Why don't we bring everybody together? Let's get the team all together and let's see if we can debrief on this one more time before I nag Mary one more time.
Before we do that, we have our amateur gumshoes who are submitting questions. So Adam, here's a question for you from the free CME text line. Okay, how in this proposal did you define a learner?
So I defined a learner as one that would go to our main page, our activity page, front matter page, and then begin the activity.
Okay. All right. Let me bring everybody back up here.
All right, team. So I think I talked to everybody. It's been an exciting morning here. A lot of phone calls, a lot of video time. I'm starting to sweat. I really thought that we put a good effort into this. We did all we could to make it unique. It was relevant. It was impactful. I thought we put a great program in front of Mary to consider. Maybe we missed a few things here and there, but they're kind of the ones that we always talk about in CMEpalooza and CBI and the Alliance. I guess business development could have had a little bit better communication with the supporter. Outcomes could have been a little more specific in laying out the level 5 plan. I guess medical affairs could certainly have found a bigger key opinion leader, maybe one that was actually practicing. Marketing could have been a little bit more targeted with the proposed numbers and not look at all these ancillary audiences. But all in all, I really thought it came together well. So I don't know where we fell out. Let's ask the audience here, who do they think done it?
All right. Now that you've heard from everyone, we're going to do one final poll everywhere poll. Who is primarily responsible for this grant being declined? We're going to hear from Mary in a moment, and we will find out who the culprit truly is. So it looks like the majority of people are pointing the finger so far at our marketing maven, Adam, with a little bit of Kevin, and then Audrey, followed by Emily. So Phil, I am going to turn it back to you. And I believe that we are going to get Mary on the phone, finally corner her one last time.
All right, Mary, I got to know. I scheduled this time. I've been looking forward to it all day. I know you got time. You can't just jump on the phone now. So please tell me, what did we do wrong in this grant?
Yeah, hey, sorry about today. It's just been a long day, Phil. So I'm glad we got a chance. I got a chance to touch base with the team. And in looking at the grant, there's really nothing that stood out as being a problem with the grant, right? Everything seemed pretty solid. I pushed the team a little bit on the fact the RFP mentioned level 5 outcomes. I'm not sure that's really feasible in an online environment. I also think it's a tough space given, what's happening with COVID and lung, pulmonologists they're just a tough audience in general. And now to add this to it. So to be honest, the grant looked really solid. So if what ended up happening is a grant came in the unsolicited environment and it was multi-supported. So when I've got to look at how my funds can go, I was able to stretch those dollars out really far. So sorry about that. I know a lot of work went into this and it was really complete, but it was really kind of something out of your control. And had it been a different environment, and this was just in the RFP environment compared to that peer group, this might have been selected, but given what happened on the other side, I can make my money go a lot further. So sorry for the effort. It looked great. It might be something you want to consider in the future in a different environment, but yeah, so sorry about that. And I know it's not a lot of work on your part.
Well, thanks, Mary. We always appreciate the review and consideration, and it's always the multi-support that gets you, huh?
Yeah, especially in today's world when budgets are short and tight because we're all trying to help the world solve COVID.
Absolutely. Well, thanks.
You're welcome.
All right, now we transition. Woo! Welcome to the Whodunit post-game show, sponsored by CMEpalooza and the 20 other sponsors of CMEpalooza. This was a fun game that we played, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. I want to ask Mary and give her time up here on the podium and tell a little bit about what you learned from a supporter perspective. I know not just in this little role play here, but in the planning. It was probably interesting to hear how a grant could be debriefed on.
Yeah, it was, when we did the practice sessions is when I was like, wow, it was really interesting because everybody went through, you kind of led the team through the conversation we just played, right, that we just acted out. And I sat in the background and listened to the conversations. And it was really interesting to hear the things that you poked at. Well, could it be this? Well, could it be that? And I'm like, you guys are so way off base. I never would have considered, like in my little world, I never would have considered that. So it was really interesting. One, a lot of respect for how you really pressure test the process and the thought that goes behind every single section, whether it was the marketing or the med affairs or the outcomes or business development. It was really interesting to hear how you relied on any feedback we could give you, which was very, very limited. The RFP played a really strong role in guiding where you went and making decisions, whether it was, to be honest, the right decision or not. But you really, it was interesting to just understand that you think of it from a different perspective than the supporters do. And I wish there was an opportunity for there to be more transparency in these conversations. There's just not, given the rules. But I learned a lot to recognize, one, that you're doing a lot of great due diligence on it. And two, we need to somehow do a better way of being able to share what's in our head and what's in your head, and how can those two come together for the best grant submissions. So it was really interesting to sit back and watch it.
It was fun planning it too. How do you think this could help other, med ed companies and mechs out there that are watching this CMEpalooza session?
Well, I think that, what happened is, there's been many times that conversation has actually happened, right? Where it gets to the end of the day and it's something completely out of your control. So the best efforts is going to happen. So I think, for those organizations or supporters that can be transparent, as best as you can be transparent, I think it's really important to share that information. So there's not that spiraling within the organizations to say, was it me? Was it you? Or the finger pointing. Now, we were a little bit more deliberate in blaming each other. But I'm sure in some cases that probably happens. And so if somebody can get better, if there's an opportunity for us to share feedback that allows people to get better, I think, that's really important. And for those supporters that are able to share information, when, providers, have those questions, ask that clarifying information if you can, because that transparency was really interesting. I'm wondering if other supporters felt the same way when they watched this morning. That said, hey, they really do debrief. Now, yes, this was a little acting job, a little play, but as you've all described, these kind of conversations do happen. And when somebody rejects a grant, it does create a reaction on the other end. So I think it's important for us to recognize that those rejections do create, in this situation, 5, 6 other internal conversations. So it's just to understand each other's roles, I think, is super helpful.
I think that's great. Scott, any questions submitted?
Yeah, so I think the one question kind of fits in really well. So this came over the free CME text line. So the question is, how common are these grant postmortems in the real world, or do these grants typically just get thrown away and after they're rejected?
Audrey, I saw you nod, so I'm going to call on you. You want to try that one?
I think they're common in general. I mean, it's a learning curve, and looking to see if there's like a secret sauce, missing something, and going back and doing our due diligence is part of what we do exactly for learners all the time. So we're trying to see where there's just an area for improvement. It's not always that something's wrong, but it is, could we polish something a little bit more, or could we make something a little bit more in line? So I think more often than not, this type of debriefing happens. And if you don't see it happening in your organization, it's good to speak up and say that you should, because you'll learn a little bit more to strengthen what you do next.
How about Emily? What do you think? From outcomes is always a constantly, you're always striving for more in outcomes, right?
Always. So I think we do this less on an individual basis, but we're always looking at what we do well and what we can improve on. So it's constantly an evolving wheel, and it keeps turning, and you have to roll with the punches and keep finding something that you can do better.
Kevin, Adam?
So I'll jump in, Phil. Yeah, it's interesting, to think, because you had individual calls, right? Probably more common would be the team would get together, on a call, and so you'd get immediate feedback from everyone at the same time. And in our scenario, we, there was not a strong, reason internally for the grant, So I think, if there is feedback on why the grant was declined, it really helps the process. Like Mary was saying, it could really help us learn, get better, look at things. But most are declined in a vacuum, as we know. So we got to figure out, maybe what was happening and strengthen our next and subsequent, grants.
Adam, I think.
Yeah, I would just add that, in our scenario, we obviously inflated some things, and we wanted to just make a point. But from the marketing side, it's always, is the numbers too high? Was the numbers too low? Did the plan not take shape in terms of make it clear what we could do to actually give confidence that we could hit those numbers? And then I touched on even the look and feel of the grant, because that's something else that, from a marketing perspective, that's something kind of take ownership of. And did we have this great format, but was it clear enough in the grant, or was the supporter just kind of glancing through it and didn't really see truly what this thing could accomplish? So you kind of think about all those things. But as Mary pointed out, getting that feedback, that specific feedback, is so difficult. We love to kind of sit back and try to figure out what we could do better, but sometimes not having that feedback makes it difficult. So it would be great if we could get it even more so, but we know the realities are that you can't always do that.
All right, so here's a couple more things. So I think this was a comment that came over Twitter, which I think we can all kind of relate to. When good grants get rejected, it hurts your soul. And I do have, there is a specific question that came over the free CME text line for Emily. So the question is, how much do you push back against your colleagues when they are trying to push you to achieve higher level outcomes for a specific proposal than truly can be achieved?
Well, I'd like to say as much as I can get away with, but no, we do try to accommodate as much as possible based on what a supporter is looking for and what aligns with their needs, especially in an RFP that is outlined as it was, where we had this very, very straightforward feedback from Audrey that, an L5 was what they were looking for. So as far as that sort of thing goes, we do our research, we plan as best as we can, and we crank it out, we make it happen.
Okay, that was a very PC answer, I think.
Thank you. So I guess we can do some closing thoughts. I think we're right at the end here, right? Scott, we go to 9:50.
You have about 7 minutes, 9:55 if you want it. So
do some more questions then.
Sure. So here's another. This is more of a comment than a question that came over the free CME text line. Okay, so I think that a postmortem is a great idea, but I don't think it should be a blame situation. It's a cohesive team. All should celebrate victories and accept declines.
Yeah.
That's a good comment.
You
said that is not looking at my poster behind me, though. That's what I said. I'm just kidding.
So here's one more question that came over the free CME text line. Okay, I think this is probably for you, Adam. For return on educational investment, how do you define it, and what do you use to articulate this value?
So when you look at return on educational investment, I think it comes down to what we're doing all this. What's our whole purpose of doing this? We're looking at trying to educate clinicians or patients or whatever to make, just not to throw MedIQ's vision out there, but better healthcare for all. And so when I look at how do we get that return, are we getting learners? There's a little bit of obviously outcomes in here as well. Are we getting learners that we promised to go in there? Are we putting the stuff in front of them, putting this great content in front of them and letting them learn? And do we get to see that? And so I look at educational outcomes, and I look at it as your return and obviously from a marketing perspective, you always look at return on investment. If I'm spending this money, am I getting the learners that I'm hoping to get? So there's a little combination of everything, but in the end, the return is going to be, do we get the clinicians in there and are they performing at the outcomes level that we were hoping for? So I think Emily might be able to chime in a little bit on that, but in the end, are we doing what we hope to accomplish in the grand scheme of things, which is better healthcare for all? We're trying to make doctors and clinicians smarter if we can.
Well, that's the last question I have, Bill. So yeah, if you want to kind of go around and kind of have wrap-up statements from everybody, I think that would be great.
Sure, let's do some closing thoughts. We'll do in reverse order. So Mary, any closing thoughts from the supporter side?
No, I mean, I guess the reality is this does happen in real life. And unfortunately, that perspective, I just wish we're in an environment that we can be more transparent. Maybe, we can use this kind of thought of, is there a way to do this in a way that is compliant? I mean, we've tried for years. I'm not sure we've ever been able to do that. But it does boil down to, put your best foot forward in every, possible category you have. And unfortunately, we just can't share that. So, but I do appreciate on the back end all of the thought that was going into it, because sometimes you just don't understand that all of that work's going into it. So I appreciate the fact that all of that thought and due diligence has happened in every section of the business.
Definitely. Adam?
You said Adam? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Yeah, no, overall, again, this was great just to be a part of this. So thanks for that. And, overall, I think we exasperated a little bit of, with a little bit of what we did here. But in the end, I think, like I mentioned before, I love the idea of looking at a grant, especially one we're really proud of, and trying to get everything, in order for maybe the next time, and we can learn from and we grow from it. We definitely combine a lot of thoughts from different grants and try to put the best foot forward each time. So that feedback would be invaluable from the supporters if we can get it.
Kevin?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me on this panel. And, I think, one thing I hope the audience got from this is that, grants are really nuanced. There's a lot of parts to them, a lot of things to get right, and a lot of planning and, effort that goes into it. So hopefully this was helpful, and different companies are different. There are more resources, less resources, different ways of doing things, which I think is okay. We kind of outlined, like Adam said, we kind of went over the top here, to have a little fun with it, and, to really show as many aspects as we can. So I hope it was helpful.
Perfect. Emily?
Yes, thanks so much for having me. I kind of just want to bring home that, outcomes is about as unique as every other aspect of the grant. So there is no one size fits all outcomes plan. So it takes a lot of planning, as you all know. But I just want to reiterate what Adam had said. Any kind of feedback that we get back from a supporter is absolutely invaluable.
And Audrey, take us home.
Well, it's been a pleasure getting to work with everybody for this. I think every grant that's developed, it's a team effort. You're relying on the expertise of multiple people who have spent years honing their craft. I think that organizations looking to support professional development of their team members, it's critical to stay current, and really an open dialogue and open communication across the team will get you to the most effective and impactful education. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. And I thought this was a lot of fun. I certainly want to thank our panel. I want to thank Scott and Derek for putting this together. Of course, want to thank the sponsors of CMEpalooza for making it happen. And overall, like, I think the real take-home point is working together sometimes, or always, is the most important thing. Sometimes you work together and everything goes as well as you could and just out of your control. So the more communication, the more teamwork, the better.
All right. Well, great, Phil. And thank you so much to everybody for being on this panel. So for those who are watching this either live or the archive version, there is a survey link at the bottom of the live tab. We're hoping you can fill out to give a sense of who's watching CMEpalooza Fall. We do use this to plan future iterations of our event. And to view the next session, there are changes afoot with CMEpalooza this year. So in the past, you had to refresh the live page, no more. Now on the live page, there are links to each individual session. So if you click on the link to the next session, it will start here in about 5 minutes. So with that, I'd like to thank Phil and Mary and Kevin and Adam and Audrey and Emily for their participation. Thank you so much for everybody to watching this session, and we will see you shortly.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Phil. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.